Imagine waking up and realizing the people you elected to fight for justice are instead fighting each other. The arguments get louder, the headlines get flashier, but behind all of it, one painful truth sits untouched. Survivors of abuse are still waiting. The question isn't whether Democrats did enough before, or whether Republicans care more about optics than outcomes. The question is far sharper: are the powerful in Washington going to put victims first, or are they going to protect themselves again? That's the uncomfortable test playing out, and if it's not answered with courage, the damage won't just be political, it will break what's left of public trust. That tone hit the floor when one member declared bluntly, if nothing changes, the country itself risks breaking.
Gentleman's recognized.
I've listened to my colleagues in this Epstein debate on the Republican side ask over and over, why did the Democrats say nothing during the Biden administration? I've heard TV anchors ask. In fact, I was asked this morning the same question. Now, put aside the fact that in 2019 I called on Andrew Acosta to resign because of his connection to the Epstein files, and I wanted to learn more about why Epstein was not prosecuted. Put aside what Mr. Raskin and Mr. Cummings did. Let's just take you at your word that Democrats said nothing. Is that a reason for you to do nothing? I don't understand the logic here that because you think the Democrats did nothing on the Epstein files in the Biden administration, that to own the libs, you now have license to leave sexual assault victims unprotected. It's just crazy that you hate the Democrats so much that you would let the most notorious child sex trafficker and the people connected to him not be held accountable because you want to own the libs. Let's just take you at your word. Okay, the Democrats did nothing, so you're going to do nothing, is what you are telling me. The Democrats, of course, did not do nothing, but let me boil it down to a lesson that I have right in front of me every morning when a 6-year-old wakes me up around 5:45 and wants to watch the same movie over and over and over. That's Frozen. And there's a lesson in this film where Elsa is told by one of the trolls in the movie that if you can't see the future, all you can do is the next right thing. And having seen this, again, 100 times in the last couple years, my takeaway is if you don't know what's going to happen next and you can't change the past, all you can do is the next right thing. So even if you are right that the Democrats did nothing in the past, wouldn't the next right thing be to sign the discharge petition? Or are you so obsessed with just scoring political points that you would punish sexual assault victims? Is that who you are? I don't think that's who you are. When I listen to some of the legislation you propose on your side, I do believe sincerely you care about victims. And if that's who you are and you care about victims, sign the damn discharge petition. Okay, you can own us. I don't care. You can own us 1,000 times. If it gets us to 218 signatures, I will let you have whatever victory you think you're accomplishing. But it seems to me that you're more interested in telling me not to believe my own eyes, which is what the president is doing. The president is telling us not to believe our own eyes. And it's not just on the Epstein files and the birthday card. And by the way, guys, we can bring in a handwriting expert, but I have 2 eyes. And I know what that man's obnoxious signature looks like. And so do you. But Donald Trump has told us that he would end all wars on day one, that prices would plummet and jobs would soar. And where are we? Ukraine has never been weaker. We've never seen more jobs lost in America since Donald Trump was last president. Even conservatives are complaining about how expensive grocery prices are. And even his own health, he's trying to tell us not to believe our own eyes. Joe Biden looks like an Olympic athlete compared to a man who is hiding his illness. Donald Trump is a broken man who has broke his promises. And if we don't start checking him, we are going to be a broken country. So my friends, if you sincerely believe that Democrats dropped the ball and did not do enough under the Biden administration, then join us now in doing the next right thing and sign the discharge petition. Otherwise, you're telling sexual assault victims this is just about scoring political points, and they come last. I yield back.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I yield to the ranking member.
Well, just to add to your very eloquent statement there, it seems like these days every accusation is a confession. So the accusation is the Democrats have somehow changed their position. We've been opposed to child sex trafficking all along. We spoke out against it. I've introduced evidence to that effect. It's our friends across the aisle who've changed their position. They wanted to see the release of the Epstein files. Now that Donald Trump changed his mind, they've changed their minds. Thank you for yielding.
I would just claim 5 minutes. I would just point to the subpoena that Chairman Comer sent on August 5th of this year. And I'm just going to read it. Now, frankly, I'll ask unanimous consent to put it in the record here. In scheduled to subpoena, in accordance with the attached schedule instructions, you, the Honorable Pamela J. Bondi, in your capacity as Attorney General of the United States, are required to produce the following documents and communications that are in your possession, custody, or control in unredacted form, except for redactions to protect the personally identifiable information of any victims, for any child sex abuse materials defined by the Department of Justice manual, or any other redactions required by law. And then there are seven sections here. Number 1, all documents and communications relating or referring to Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, and further relating to or referring to trafficking, exploitation of minors, sexual abuse, or related activity. Number 2, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. Number 3, all documents and communications contained within the case file regarding United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell. Number 4, all documents and communications contained within the file pertaining to the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. So this would answer what Mr. Raskin, I think, has raised real questions about multiple times in today's hearing. Number 5, all documents and communications relating or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. Again, answering, I think, getting to the information that Mr. Raskin seeks. All documents, number 6, all documents and communications between the Executive Office of the President, including the Executive Office of President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and the Department of Justice relating to or referring to United States versus Jeffrey Epstein, United States versus Ghislaine Maxwell, and the investigation of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein that resulted in the 2007 non-prosecution agreement between the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and Mr. Epstein. And number 7, all documents and communications relating to or referring to the death of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. So seven but different bullet points. Every single one starts with the word all. I think the gentleman from New York earlier said that this wouldn't get the documents that started. Yes, it would. This covers everything. And the Oversight Committee has subpoenaed all that information. And it's coming in. I think there's 30,000 pages coming in, but it's a rolling production. This is the typical way it works. We've done a lot of investigations around here. It's always a rolling production. So I think we're going to get the material. That's Oversight Committee's doing it. It's unfortunate that Mr. Goldman made the comments he did about the very fine chairman of the Oversight Committee, but he is getting the information that the American people asked for and that many members had demanded for a long time, including members on the Democrat side. So I'd ask unanimous that be entered into the record. Who seeks recognition?
I have an amendment after that.
The warning wasn't hidden in legal jargon. It was raw, pointed, and aimed at colleagues who seemed more interested in winning sound bites than in signing their names to action. Across the aisle, Republicans accused Democrats of silence during Biden's years in power. Democrats fired back with a stinging reply. Even if that were true, does that mean you now have permission to ignore survivors? The logic, they said, was insane, choosing to do nothing because someone else supposedly did nothing first. And that clash, whether politics outweighs protection, became the heartbeat of the debate. At the center of the standoff stood a simple but powerful tool, the discharge petition. To most Americans, the phrase sounds like obscure procedure, but in the House of Representatives it's one of the few blunt instruments that can crack gridlock. If 218 members sign, leadership is forced to bring a bill to the floor for a vote. No hiding it in committee, no bottling it up. Straight to the chamber, straight to accountability. That's why Democrats kept hammering one phrase, the next right thing. They framed it as the only path forward. Forget excuses about the past, forget partisan revenge. Sign this paper and force a vote. For survivors listening, this wasn't rhetoric, it was a lifeline. A way to test who actually cared enough to break party lines and make disclosure possible. But while Democrats pushed the petition, Republicans shifted the spotlight to subpoenas. Oversight committees, they said, had already acted, demanding tens of thousands of pages. In fact, over 30,000 documents were promised in what they called rolling production. The scope was broad and aggressive: case files from Epstein's prosecution, evidence from Maxwell's trial, DOJ communications, even records tied to Epstein's death. And in a dramatic moment, the name Pamela Bondi was read aloud, identified as a key figure required to produce unredacted documents. It sounded sweeping, comprehensive, the kind of dragnet that should finally break open the truth. But here's the catch: subpoenas are not magic wands. Even when committees demand everything, legal walls rise fast. Rule 6EF, Federal Criminal Procedure, seals grand jury materials, locked away unless a judge agrees otherwise. Protective orders shield witness statements, search warrants, and investigative discoveries. And most sensitive of all, anything containing child sexual abuse material is untouchable without redactions and safeguards. That's not cover-up, it's the law protecting already scarred people from further trauma. So when leaders promise everything, what they really mean is everything within limits. And it's inside those limits that the battle between transparency and protection becomes murky. That's where politics creeps in. Because while legal rules set boundaries, politicians decide how aggressively to push against them. Oversight hearings become theater when they devolve into soundbites about owning the libs instead of hammering out clear timelines for disclosure. Promises of rolling productions sound responsible, but to survivors they feel like stalling tactics. Every week becomes another excuse, every filing another delay. The names buried in those files, the elites who partied with Epstein, who benefited from his silence, those names raise the stakes for everyone. Delay protects them. Delay punishes victims. That's why one Democrat shot back that Republicans cared more about punishing political rivals than about protecting survivors. And at the core of it all are those survivors, whose stories have been treated like currency in a partisan marketplace. For them, these files aren't about headlines, they're about closure. Access to records could mean validation, new leads, or the chance to hold enablers accountable. Without disclosure, survivors remain in the shadows, their pain politicized but never prioritized. That's why every partisan jab about who did nothing during which administration misses the point entirely. Survivors don't need political history, they need answers now. And when leaders turn oversight into sparring matches, they're sending a cruel message: victims come last. So what does real action look like? It starts with the discharge petition, forcing a vote, proving who's willing to sign and who's hiding. It continues with subpoenas, but subpoenas backed with actual court fights to unseal what can legally be revealed. It includes motions before judges to responsibly release materials, with redactions for privacy but no more excuses. And it ends with sustained pressure from the public, because lawmakers move faster when voters make it clear that delay won't be tolerated. These aren't abstract solutions. They are steps Congress can take right now if the will exists. And here's where citizens come in. The public can push representatives to sign petitions, to enforce subpoenas, to prioritize survivor-centered oversight. Advocacy groups already on the front lines can be amplified and supported. Because if left to themselves, institutions will often choose the path of least resistance: caution, delay, protection of elites. But with pressure, with sustained attention, they can be forced into action. That's not theory, that's how change has always been wrestled from reluctant hands. This isn't about choosing sides in a partisan cage match. It's about choosing between justice and optics. Institutions can continue slow-walking disclosure, citing endless constraints, or they can carve out pathways that balance transparency with privacy. If leaders truly care about victims, as they claim in their speeches, they must prove it with signatures, subpoenas, and motions. Anything less is theater. Anything less is betrayal. And that's why this moment matters so much. Because it's not about whether Democrats dropped the ball before or whether Republicans are dropping it now. It's about whether the next right thing will finally be done before survivors give up hope altogether. If promises break again, if leaders continue to deflect, the fracture won't just be partisan. It will split the very trust people place in the system. And once that trust shatters, rebuilding it will take more than hearings or petitions. It will take years of proof that victims, not elites, come first. So if you've stayed with me through this breakdown, here are 3 things you can do right now. First, share this video so more people understand the difference between political theater and legal action. Stop letting the headlines be the only story. Second, subscribe here for deeper breakdowns of hearings like this, because the details matter, and spin can't be the last word. And third, contact your representative. Demand survivor-centered transparency, redacted releases that protect privacy but expose truth, subpoenas enforced with urgency, votes forced if leadership drags its feet. Because this isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of whether America finally chooses to protect the people who trusted the system and were betrayed, or whether it once again protects the powerful who thrived on silence. Don't let this be another headline that fades. Keep the pressure alive, stand with survivors, and insist loudly, persistently that the next right thing finally gets done.